Hey, everybody, welcome to another edition of 310 to Left, presented by your New England Ford dealers and F-Series, America's best-selling truck for 48 years and the official truck of the Boston Red Sox. Tom Caron along with Alex Spear. Alex, how was your weekend?
Weekend was great. I actually was at a wedding, but detoured to visit with the Salem Red Sox briefly because the wedding serendipitously happened to be around there. So had a delightful opportunity to hang out for a little bit with promising young prospect Franklin Arias. But weekend was great. How about you, Tom? You were among rock royalty, yeah?
Yes, went from Hollers in studio to Rock and Roll Hall of Famers. We got to be part of the Hut Stove Cool Music event, the 25th annual for the foundation to be named later. Theo and Paul Epstein's great charity, and it was a special one because we were honoring our prior guest on the show, Peter Gammons, and his 80th birthday and the Gammons Scholars, but also it was the 25th year. But what was really cool for me is I got to introduce Cheap Trick on stage, the Rock and Roll Hall of Famers, with Lenny DiNardo. And when I was a kid, I was a massive Cheap Trick fan. So every now and again, you have those sort of pinch yourself moments like, what the hell am I doing on stage right before Cheap Trick? But it was a great event. It was a lot of fun. Saw a lot of, Bill Lee was dancing in the crowd. It was just a really fun event. So thanks to everybody who showed up and was part of that. Raised a lot of money.
Is stage diving at these events has that gone by has that happened for among prominent public figures since Drew Bledsoe? We're probably also nearing the 25th anniversary of that one.
The Everclear concert, if I recall, is who was playing in that show. I feel there should be a rule of thumb that if any of the performers are in their 70s, stage diving is frowned upon. And but that was the case. And we also, not for any reason other than as a fan, I got to see the band Heart at Agganis Arena on Sunday night. And again, septuagenarians were on stage rock and rolling. So again, there was no mosh pit. No, too many artificial hips in the crowd to mess around with that. So I would not recommend that. The Red Sox salvaged a game. That's two straight series where they've had to win the final game to avoid being swept. Not a trend you would like to continue. They are in Tampa, Florida. I don't have to say Tampa Bay. I always get yelled at for saying Tampa because they're in St. Pete. They're in Tampa playing outdoor baseball. And, the early indications are this thing's working out okay. It's, they're filling the place with 11,000 people, which is what they would have gotten at Tropicana Field anyway. I mean, all things considered, I think, Major League Baseball did a good job of making this a not worst case scenario for the Rays.
Yeah, I mean, certainly the fact that Steinbrenner Field had been recently renovated and that it's a pretty good setup, all things considered, for the Rays players especially. I think that it's probably a better setup than Sacramento. There's been there hasn't been a lot of joy with the A's being in Sacramento thus far this year, whereas you have not only geographical proximity but some important facilities for a major league team to be able to take advantage of. But we'll see. I think that the real test of this is going to be in the summer when that's the time of year when Florida can be a little bit swampy and there can be an extraordinary number of rain delays and all kinds of things. So it's off all things considered to as good a start as you could hope for, I think.
And we all know they tweaked around their schedule, so they're playing a whole lot of home games at the beginning, a lot of home games at the end, not many home games in the middle. I think 6 or 7 or 8 home games in each of July and August. I mean, it's crazy. But you'll avoid a lot of rain delays, so makes sense.
And a lot of the conditions. It is worth emphasizing. It is hard to play baseball in that part of Florida in the summer. I've been around some Gulf Coast League / now Florida Complex League games where players will end up getting sick on the field just because of the intense humidity and it's just a physically it is hard to play baseball in a schwitz, which is kind of what's going to be happening at times in the summer. Yeah. So good luck.
I believe that was in Abner and Doubleday's footnotes in the original document that he produced. Don't play in a schwitz. You won't be happy. We got to see Garrett Crochet do exactly what he was brought in to do, right? He's done this a couple times, right? Baltimore, he snapped that 4-game losing streak, 8 innings in a dominant performance. But yesterday was something else. Sunday was special. Taking a no-hitter into the 8th inning. Of course, this being baseball, one of the 4 guys traded for him is the guy who broke up the no-hitter with 1 out in the 8th inning. Chase Mydroth breaking it up. But just a brilliant performance. Again, first double-digit strikeout game with the Red Sox. To do it in his first start against his former team in the stadium where he used to pitch, it was really a special performance from Crochet.
Yeah, and it's funny because, like, we asked him after the Baltimore start, which coincided with him signing the contract. So, you looking to make a statement about this is who you're going to be for the contract? And he's like, no, I'm making a statement to myself. Like, he holds himself to such a high standard. He was very disappointed with his Fenway Park debut, and so he's coming back out of that and wants to be the pitcher that he expects himself to be. Someone who is willing to just let his electric arsenal eat in the strike zone and just pound 4-seamers, cutters, mix in the sweeper. But when he's able to effectively locate the cutter, either on the glove side of the plate, or make it look like it's going to be a strike and then have it veer sharply off the plate in on the hands of right-handed hitters, he is going to be really, really good and an awfully big handful for opposing hitters. But it's not always that you get these glimpses immediately of the pitcher that you hoped to acquire, right? Like, so, just in his first month as a member of the Red Sox, hasn't been perfect, but you've seen an awful lot of why Garrett Crochet was a guy who the Red Sox were willing to give up 4 prospects, including Chase Mydroth, to acquire, and why they were willing to, on top of that, sign him to the long-term deal that they have not been willing to offer to many other pitchers in baseball.
Yeah, and doing it at a time when the offense is in a funk, right? And there are times over the course of a year where a pitcher goes in and you can say all the right things, but Garrett Crochet knew last night going into that his team was struggling to score runs, and it's scoreless into the 6th inning while he's got this, at that point, perfect game still going. I mean, there's no margin for error there. And so I just love the way he responds, the way, as you said, the way he talks about himself, the way he handles himself, and then the way he performs on the mound. I said by May, these were going to be must-watch games. When you saw Garrett Crochet, you're going to start to get back to the old, circling your calendar, trying to figure out when Pedro was going to pitch so that you don't trade away your tickets to those games, right? I think it's already happening. I think fans are already buzzing about Crochet days.
Yeah, and it's super interesting because I don't think we've seen the best of his stuff, right? Like, we're still seeing him at a quote unquote comfortable, like 96 to 98, which is, it's hilarious that there's another gear there. Certainly another gear that he was regularly exhibiting last year. And he has yet to work up to that. Alex Cora has cited the example of Chris Sale usually kind of kicking into another gear when he arrived in early April, there being another layer to the velocity to what he's able to achieve. And I think that once you get to warmer, more comfortable conditions, especially where you have feel for the baseball, you can really just let it rip. And it is going to be pretty fascinating to see what that means for Garrett Crochet.
And his next start should be at Fenway Park against that same White Sox team. So it's going to be fun when Patriots Day weekend comes to town. We've got a lot to talk about today. Lucas Giolito is going to join us. I can't wait to talk to him about his rehab. He's getting close, about the mental challenges of being on the shelf for as long as he have. And we got to talk about Netflix, don't we? I mean, he's from a filmmaking and acting family.
Yeah, this is someone who is well positioned to critique the show on multiple levels, right? The perspective that he brings is both a baseball player and someone who is familiar with the entertainment industry. Pretty good.
Yeah, forget Rotten Tomatoes. We've got Lucas Giolito. You can save your Rotten Tomatoes for me and Alex when you see us in person. But first, let's start with Garrett Crochet. We just talked about his outstanding performance. Let's hear what he had to say after 8 1/3 of dominance in Chicago against his former team, the White Sox. Here's Garrett Crochet after his start on Sunday.
describe what it was like for you pitching out there today? You seem to have everything working.
Yeah. I felt like, for the most part, my heater command was good. Cutter still working on that, but changeup and sinker played a big part in the game today.
You mentioned how every time you go out, you go with the mindset of throwing a no-hitter. Having an opportunity to actually be closer.
Last one too? That's funny. Just competing in the zone, I felt like I was doing a good job of that today. Finally stopped thinking about strikeouts and got a couple, so that was nice.
When did you start having conversations with Alex about how long you were going to stay?
I think it might have been after the 7th. It might have been after the 6th. I don't remember. I know that my workload's been pretty high the past couple outings, but I felt good today, so I was ready to keep going. But, it was kind of, hey, once I get the first one, we're going to go to the pen.
He said he'd never been so happy to see an opposing hitter get a hit.
Yeah.
Is that how what did he say to you when you come out?
No, he just said good job. That was about it.
What's in your mind, the pitch count ceiling in that situation?
I don't know. I felt like I kept a lot in reserve. I didn't really start ramping it up there in velo until later in the game. I feel like I could have thrown 5 more innings. Like I was feeling really good.
So any extra emotions? I mean, going up against them, I know it's been like kind of a build up the past couple days.
Not a ton. Just trying to think about it as every other start. I feel like, I got burned a couple times doing that last year, facing specific teams, and maybe, overamping or trying to keep myself as neutral as possible. And I feel like the best way to do it is, just be even keel throughout the game.
Is there any irony to my draft being the one that...
Yeah, no, I thought that was pretty funny too. I don't really have anything to say about it, but, put a good swing on a ball. That's about it.
It seemed like in the 3rd or 4th inning, you kind of hit a different gear and you started really pumping strikes and velocity went up a little bit.
Yeah. First time through, no base runners, I was feeling pretty good. And, sadly, I was very aware of the no-hitter since the, first inning, since the first batter. That's just kind of who I am, I suppose. Blessing and a curse.
You mentioned your cutter being a work in progress still.
Yeah.
You had my draw 1-2, and the cutter was the pitch that he hit the single off of.
And that's actually the spot where I want to throw the cutter, so I'm okay with it. Looking back at the swing, I think that I did fool him a little bit, but he's a good bat-to-ball guy. Doesn't swing and miss a ton. Had got him with the sweeper in his second at-bat, so I didn't really love the idea of going back to the sweeper. And just playing the sinker game all day with him, I felt like the cutter was the pitch to go to. He put a good swing on it, though.
Garrett, big picture, what does it mean to you to be like the stopper right now with kind of what the team's gone through?
Yeah, it's cool. Just, trying to have the presence on the mound so that the team knows when I step up there, we got a chance to win today.
Probably going to get these guys again next week.
Yeah, it should.
How will that kind of change game plan?
Just watch video on this one and compare to how I executed my scouting report. Getting someone twice in a row it's challenging, but at the same time you can't try and reinvent the wheel. What I did work today. I'm just going to try and keep executing.
How big was Trevor for you guys today?
Oh, huge, man. He's had a couple solid games in a row. It's been nice to see him healthy and just see him having tons of success.
I've been watching you here for a long time. Yeah. You always sought perfection, right? Every time you go out, can you talk a little bit about that idea?
Yeah, I guess that's what I was alluding to with the blessing and a curse thing. Just always trying to see what I can improve upon. I felt like sequencing has really taken a step forward for me, incorporating the changeup today. It helps that the wind was right in my face, so maybe got a little extra horizontal on it, but the sinker as well, just being a guy that's throwing 3 fastballs, I think that is what I was kind of harping on at the end of last year, and it's working out so far for me.
Joining us now is a man who could certainly relate with what was going on yesterday in Chicago. Lucas Giolito threw a no-hitter in Chicago, pitching for the White Sox against the Pirates back in 2020. Lucas, thanks for joining us. And as you were watching Garrett Crochet take that into the eighth inning, what was going through your mind? Were you reliving some of that moment? Do you get nervous? What was that like for you?
Yeah, it was crazy yesterday. I was watching the game in our training room actually here in Fenway with some of the training staff that stays back, and I was starting to get really nervous there in the like seventh, eighth inning, especially. That's kind of how I am watching my teammates pitch when especially when they're going for something big. Whereas it's so the opposite. Like when I was going through the no hitter I threw in 2020, it was just like hyper focus, and you don't feel anything really. There's no emotion, especially in those later innings. So I was definitely watching and like screaming out every pitch I thought he should be throwing and everything like that. And he took it really far. It's just that one breaking ball. I believe Mydroth is his
Yep.
name. Yeah, he put a good swing on it there, and it's just one of those ones where like if he hit it a few centimeters this way or this way on the barrel, then it would have been at our third baseman or shortstop. So that's just how it goes. Like you need luck to throw a no hitter or perfect game. That's a big part of it.
Well, the fact that you were like sitting there screaming with the training staff, like watching this game, right, is like underscores to me what we've seen over the last year plus, which is like you've stayed around it, right? Like you haven't, some people prefer to just go way far away from what's going on the field. It's too hard. It's too hard not to be there. You've been in the dugout as much as possible. You've stayed with the team. How much do you feel anticipation for like you are presumably at the last legs of this long rehab process? Like how much are you just, especially watching those games in Chicago, a very familiar mound, just kind of dying to get out there at this point?
Yeah. As far as my rehab process, it's been like hell. It's been very long, very arduous, at times, emotional. It's been a whole crazy thing, especially dealing with the other side of it, where it's like I signed here to do a certain type of job as starting pitcher, which is something I've been good at for a long time, which is eat innings, and I have not thrown a single inning on this contract, which like kills me inside. So the fact that I'm finally getting there, I'm very excited about. If it were up to me, I'd just throw this one more rehab start and then rejoin the team. But it's not up to me. I don't know what they're going to have me do after tomorrow. That's when I'm throwing my next one. So I'm just going to keep putting in the work. And I just can't wait to like actually be a part of what this club is trying to do rather than just somebody on the sidelines.
You have the injury last spring and that shuts you down for the year, right? And you get through that whole process. You get on the mound against Philadelphia in Fort Myers, and you feel the hamstring on the very first pitch. And it's obviously not the elbow, right? It's not, at that point, it's pretty minor. You said you've been through hamstrings before. You knew it wasn't that bad. But how annoying is it at that point when you are sitting there after that outing, knowing that this little thing is going to set you back a little bit and you're so amped up? Like, what was that like, and how were you able to compartmentalize that and just move on?
It was very frustrating in the moment. I mean, it was one of those ones where like I felt like I could get through it, so I wasn't about to walk off the mound in my first spring training game back after not pitching for a year. So I was like, all right, let me just like get through this. So I just pushed a bunch of change-ups over the plate until the inning was over. So it was kind of ugly, but yeah, I was very frustrated and very angry for a little while there. It's no other way to really put it.
Right.
It was like, wow, really? So, at the same time, it's like, all right, this is like the cards I've been dealt here. So let me just get to work, do everything I can. It basically pushed my spring training back. So I'm essentially going through the final stages of my spring training right now. And I just look forward to getting back out there and doing it at the highest level. I really missed it.
Well, it's interesting because last spring before the injury, you were engaged in some interesting usage tweaks, right? Like there seemed to be a significant emphasis on the slider, which seems to be a Red Sox thing, right? Like sliders, cutters are kind of leading the charge in many ways. You've had all this time not only to rehab, but to think about the pitcher that you want to be, right? Like what kind of usage you're going to be employing, what's going to be how do you know exactly the kind of like I was at a spring outing where you spun a great curveball to Devers and like it was like, oh, that's my minor league curveball that I used to have, right? How much have you thought about exactly who you're going to be on the mound? Do you have a clear sense of the 2025 version of Lucas Giolito and what that's going to be most directly comparable to?
Well, I think that big thing for me is like continuing to rely on my strengths and utilize my strengths, but also being adaptable. Different teams have different approaches, different players have different approaches offensively. And so for me, this process has been trying to kind of have a really good feel for my 4-pitch mix rather than just like a 3 or a 2-pitch mix, which is what I've had in the past with no curveball, and be able to kind of use everything, or not have to use everything. Like I might have a game where I'm like fastball changeup only, or I might have a game where I like barely throw any changeups, because you don't want to be too predictable. And I feel like when I've been at my best in the past, the first and foremost has always been commanding the fastball, both sides of the plate, and commanding it up in the zone, and then kind of working off of that. And I've had games where we were way heavier with the slider. I've had games where the changeup was really working. They're not seeing that very well, so we'll just abuse them with that. So that's kind of pitcher I want to be coming back, is just be able to utilize whatever. Or if I go out there and like one pitch isn't working that day, it's like, all right, cool, I got this one working. So yeah, just kind of have that like Swiss Army knife kind of approach, rather than, oh, I'm going in with this cookie cutter. Oh, I'm going to throw 40% of this and 36% of this. Like I need to throw 37% sliders. I don't think that that's going to be necessarily my recipe for success.
Yeah, well, that gets back to the question of like the art of pitching, right? Like that's, it's figuring out what you have on any given day, even within the rehab process, and facing AAA hitters. Where do you feel like you've been at in terms of being able to, number one, where have you been at in terms of your stuff? And number two, where have you been at in terms of being able to make those batter to batter adjustments based on feel? Like, and how much joy do you get out of figuring that out?
Yeah, I don't get a ton of joy out of it, to be honest. It's not that fun. The most fun thing is competing up here. I've been fortunate enough to do it for a long time, and like it's the pinnacle, and that's all I want to do. Especially at the playoff level. I've only had 2 playoff starts in my career, and I really want more. So it's all been in preparation to come back. The last couple rehab outings in AAA, there's been emphasis on the slider. The first one, my slider was no good, so it was kind of going. It's like, oh, the slider, which is something I really wanted to throw a lot today, it's not working very well. So went to the fastball and really utilized the fastball to get out of some situations and be able to put together an outing. Usually I just kind of fall back on the changeup. That's my best pitch, but I've been kind of trying to challenge myself to do it in different ways here in these rehab outings. So the most recent one, again, kind of focus on the slider. I've been trying to dial that slider in. The slider was good, but I didn't really have fastball command. So it was a lot of like 0-2 to 3-2 counts. My pitch count climbed really high, especially in the first inning, which was a bit frustrating, but was able to use the slider to kind of get out of some situations and then get some early weak contact later in the outing that got me through my 4 ups. So, yeah, whether I have one more or two, I'd say like the approach now is, just kind of like pitch how I'm going to want to pitch, utilizing everything and, trying to play with, speed changes and tunneling and things like that.
You talk about that, and I think people here in Boston forget that, like you said at the very beginning, you've always posted, right? 29 or more starts, 160 more innings every full season prior to last year, going back to 2018. So now last year happens, and you're alone. Adam Ottavino did that. Had you ever seen the Adam Ottavino kind of documentary he did when he kept a video journal of his Tommy John rehab? It was remarkable. Yeah, you got to find it, and it's just the isolation of him alone going through that stuff every day. Like, how tough is that? At that stage of your career when you've had a lot of accomplishments at the major league level, but as you said, you're still, trying to go on a deeper playoff run. There's things you want to do, and now you're shut down for a year. How difficult is that mentally to just grind through a year like that?
Yeah, it wasn't very fun. I was very lucky to have so much support, family, friends, things like that, but especially here with the organization. You mentioned earlier, it's like some guys, it's like just I want to go down to Florida and be away from it all. I feel like if I did that, it would have been worse for my mental health. So I wanted to be around at least, and try and be like a cheerleader, I guess, during the games and just be around the guys. So that was nice. That was helpful. But I don't know. You have this like feeling of it's like you're useless. You're getting paid all this money. You're expected to do a job, and then because of something broke, you can't do it for a very long time. So there is that feeling of you're just kind of like a useless worker. And I don't like feeling that way. I like being useful to who I'm playing for, the teammates around me. And so, yeah, I mean, it's kind of like a mental mountain to climb at times. You have your lows, and then I mean, I guess your like wins are when you are allowed to throw again, or you hit a little achievement. And so you just try to stack those up and stay positive and, let the time pass.
Alex Cora has said having your voice, because you did stay with the team, having your voice and your veteran experience was a big help to a young pitching staff last year. Were there times was it difficult at all to sort of balance that? You're a ghost and you've got to rehab and do your own thing, but on the other hand, you can help this group in certain ways. Like, how do you balance that? I don't want to step into something that maybe I'm not really able to do much about because I can't go out there. But on the other hand, I see things that I might be able to help. Like, what was that like?
It makes me think of, before recording, we were talking about the documentary, and Duran mentioned in that episode that focuses on him about being a leader when you're not doing well. It's like hard, because it's like, why is anyone going to listen to me when I'm either not performing well, or in my case, or it's that I'm not even playing. Like, I'm just here. I'm like you said, a ghost. I'm in the training room every day. It's kind of a little battle with that. For me last year, as far as like my approach to leadership, I just wanted to be there, be supportive. Any questions guys had, like if anyone wanted to, run something by me when it came to like anything pitching related, just trying to be supportive. Like I said, kind of like a cheerleader to, especially the other starting pitchers. That's what I made myself available for, I guess. That's all I really wanted to do, was just be helpful in any way possible. I wasn't about to be like barking orders out and anything like that. That would be crazy.
I am curious, since you mentioned the Netflix documentary. We were talking about this before we started, that you've seen roughly the first half of the series. I've really, like, it's stuck with me, like, having watched what I did of the series. Like, I've watched the entirety of the series, and I've thought a lot about player mental health as a result of it. I think it's something I've always thought about, but it was such a, like, it was to kind of follow that thread through the entire season was really striking, I think, and hopefully changes the way that a lot of people see athletes and see the sport. Curious for your impressions, having seen of what you've seen so far, and I think you said you'd seen the first 4 episodes so far.
Yeah, I think it's well done. It's crazy because, like, living it and being around, with the cameras and all the people working on it, it is crazy how those shows are made in the editing room, like completely made in the editing room. There's like a scene where AC is like walking through our weight room downstairs, and then it cuts to him doing his like pre-game or post-game press conference, and that's just like not down the stairs, it's actually up the stairs. And it's like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
The magic of production.
For me,
Yeah.
for me, it's like, oh, if this was like, I don't know, it's like in my head, it's like continuity error, but like, no, it's like no one would know that. It's like, oh, here he goes down the stairs to the press conference room. But yeah, I think it's really well done. When it comes to, I think they did a nice job of kind of like pulling the curtain back a little bit, at least on what I've seen. The Jaron Duran episode is the one everyone's talking about. I think it's extremely well done, and I think Jaron's willingness to open up and talk about like real mental health struggles, stuff that he dealt with as a young player that he still deals with today, depression, anxiety. That's something that affects a lot of baseball players. It affects a lot of human beings. Probably every human being to a certain degree, deals with some level of it at some point in their life or throughout their whole life. And I think that it was amazing he did that, because you're being very vulnerable. There were times where, I had the camera on me to do an interview or whatever, and I'm thinking in my head, like, do I want to like get into this? Do I want to talk about this? And to Jaron's credit, he just opened right up and told the whole story. And I think that's at least I was seeing some stuff, like a lot more calls. It's been really helpful, kind of inspiring people to reach out, get help, which is great to see. And so, anything that kind of like helps lift that stigma, like, we're not all just crazy macho men that, just push everything away and everything's fine and great all the time. Like, there's some real stuff going on. And I think that, at least in that episode, it really kind of encapsulates that very well.
I feel like that's one of the takeaways from the whole thing, right? Like, we get to see it closer than most people because we're covering you guys every day, but we're still not inside there with you guys, and just how you all deal with failure more than any other professional sport. I think that's what they did a really good job detailing. Now you're from a filmmaking family, right? You go back a couple generations of actors, so you were probably watching this production happening in a different way than anyone else in that room. Did you have a lot of conversations with Greg where you're sort of watching them shooting something almost in your mind, picturing how that would be edited together and what that sequence would be? Like, what was it like to be around when they were filming it and when they were starting to put these things together?
Yeah, I wasn't like on movie sets and stuff as a kid. despite like my family history and everyone being an actor, a writer, a creative in some way, I'm not too familiar with how it's done. So I was kind of like a kid in a candy store at times, talking with Greg. I would talk with Greg. He's the director. He did a really good job. I like Greg a lot. And I would like talk with him. Sometimes we just get into conversations about like other films and television shows. And I asked him I asked him a lot about Last Chance U and the Dallas Cowboys cheerleader show that he did. Because I was a big fan of those even prior to the Netflix filming. So yeah, there were times where like I did this whole long form sit down interview that was like an hour and a half. And I'm 4 episodes in, I didn't see any of it yet. They might have cut the whole thing out, which is fine.
Yeah, no, there's a little bit. You got some coming.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think the biggest thing that surprised me is they filmed so much,
yeah,
and they don't use like 94% of it
right.
at all. Right. We were talking the Clubhouse, like I feel like they could do another 8 episodes of just last year easily, but it probably wouldn't be as engaging. Maybe, I don't know, or maybe engaging to like the regular audience that they're trying to appeal to. Like hardcore baseball fans would probably enjoy a bunch of just like the random stuff they were filming and capturing of us, but they're trying to appeal to a massive market internationally with Netflix. So yeah, they used what they used.
Do you eagerly look at yourself when you're on camera like that, or do you some people, like even me, I've been doing this for forever, and I still don't necessarily love seeing myself on TV. You look at it. I remember we used to do a series called My Story, where it was like a deep dive, and the player would tell his story. And a lot of guys would reach out and say, hey, can I get a copy of it? And I remember we did Rick Porcello, and I went to him and I was like, hey, you want a copy? He was like, well, no, it's my story. I lived it. I've seen the whole story. Like for you, again, watching each of these episodes, not knowing when you're coming up, how do you sort of watch yourself in something like this? Or like, because you've seen so many videos of you pitching, is seeing yourself on the screen pretty normal? Like, what's that like for you?
Yeah, seeing myself on TV and everything is normal. I don't like the sound of my own voice. I critique the crap out of myself. If I ever catch like a clip of like a post-game interview or in podcasts like this, because I use too many filler words, and no matter how much I try and work on it, I sit here, I've probably said like and 100 times in this podcast. And so I hate that part of it. See, there I go again. But as far as watching myself, I'm cool with it. It's fine. My mother does not like it at all. Like the movies and television shows she's been in, she is like, oh no. She's kind of like that whenever they come on. My girlfriend has no desire to watch anything that she's in this Netflix show. She really doesn't want to see herself on TV. Everyone's different with that. I'd say I'm a little more like indifferent. It's cool.
Well, I think that the real question is, if you were to take on the directorial role, would you have like the old school director megaphone? Would you be, what kind of aesthetic? What kind of aesthetic would you cultivate if you were to engage on the production/direction side of things? Would you have the director's chair? Maybe you're sitting in one right now. The possibilities are limitless.
Yeah. I don't know if I could ever be a director. It's I don't know if I have enough of a creative vision. Maybe I'd just be a producer.
As our producers groan in the background. As our producers groan in the background. Maybe I'd just be a producer.
I don't know. My idea of being like a Hollywood producer is like you just put up some money and you give some notes and you're like, oh, do this. And I'd like to see maybe some of this, and you just kind of chill out and watch it all happen.
So I should ask though, like you mentioned though that your whole family is like, you're from this like wonderful creative, like, creative family. Do you feel like you have that you have continued that? Like is pitching for you a form of creativity, or is it just kind of or is it the a kind of more visceral undertaking that is less about creativity than it is about I don't know, science, force, whatever.
It's a mix of both. I've never been too into the science stuff. I I you have to have an understanding of it, but I've never been into like physics, if that makes sense. I know a lot of guys that look at pitching with like that physics type of scientific approach. For me, if I get into that, I call it like diving too into the nerd stuff. If I get too into that, then I'm no longer competing, because for me it's you, when I go out there, if I'm at my best, like I have to be an MFer. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You have to be just like an animal out there. Uh, I'm very, very proud and also a little bit envious, because I haven't been able to do this for a long time, of Garrett Crochet's approach right now. I mean, if you see how he's talking about how he's pitching, if you see about the way he's going about it, that is like my ideal. And I so look forward to being able to like kind of bounce that energy off of him when I get back in this rotation. Uh, yeah, the what I call, the nerd stuff, it's so important in today's game. You need to have an understanding of it. You have to be able to like throw a pitch and like be able to understand, oh, I'm spinning the ball like this and I need to spin it like that. So let me put a little bit more pressure here, or change this grip or whatever. And oh, you want, this is negative movement, this is positive movement. Great. But when it comes to actually pitching, it's for me like visceral competition with a little mix of creativity, because you are kind of like, you're painting the picture, right? You're painting the strike zone, but you're making things move, you're slowing things down. And so it's like a nice mix of those types of feelings there.
All right, so you're getting closer to being able to do it for the Red Sox finally, right? And is there something you'd like to accomplish Tuesday night that would be the difference in being able to make the next start back up? Is it you'll go out and do what you do and then see what they say? Like how much will you push based on what you do and how you feel after Tuesday night?
Yeah, I mean, I just go out there and make sure I get my ups. Avoid avoid what happened last time, where I threw way too many pitches in the first inning, which was kind of making everybody nervous.
In the first inning, right? 30 something pitches in the first inning. What?
Yeah.
I mean, all of a sudden the thought of 6 innings is gone, right? I mean, that sort of changes what you're going to get through that night right out of the gate.
Yeah, I was supposed to throw like 4 innings, 65, and I was able to end up. I was able to get more efficient there in the middle, so I was able to get 4 ups. I'm not sure what tomorrow is supposed to be. Probably 75 pitches, something like that. So maybe 5 ups. First and foremost, the goal is to like achieve that. That's number one, and then other than that, like I just want to feel good. I want to pitch well, and go from there. Kind of keep it simple. That's really it.
When you get to make a start at Fenway Park for the Boston Red Sox, what's it going to feel like walking out to the mound for that first inning? Have you thought about what are you going to be able to savor the moment after the last year and a half?
Yeah, I'm definitely going to savor it. I was been looking forward to it for a very long time. Yeah, I'm wondering if I'll kind of get like debut vibes from it. My major league debut, I remember kind of having those like light legs where you have that kind of, not bad anxiety, it's like more fun anxiety build up, which is a feeling that when you're doing it for so long and you become used to it, you don't get that anymore. But I wonder if that comes back. That'll be pretty interesting and fun.
Can't wait to see it. We appreciate the time. Good luck with these final steps, and we need you back at Fenway soon. Lucas Giolito, we appreciate the visit. Great stuff, and special thanks to Lucas Giolito for joining us on 310 to Left. Don't forget, we're brought to you by your New England Ford dealers in F-Series, America's best-selling truck for 48 years, and the official truck of the Boston Red Sox. Really fun conversation. Alex, I think most Red Sox fans have kind of forgotten what the Red Sox got in Lucas Giolito when they made that deal for him prior to last season. Again, a guy who's always eaten innings, a guy who's always gone and thrown deep into seasons, deep into games. It's going to be really interesting to see what effect he can have on this rotation when he comes back.
Yeah, particularly given that, we're all waiting to see exactly how much, exactly how much can Garrett Crochet continue to post, 100 plus pitch outings every 5 days. He's been on a more aggressive schedule. Richard Fitz going down. They're getting a little bit banged up, not only in their mainstays, Giolito, Bayo starting the year on the injured list, but also now in their depth. So, having Giolito as a regular presence is kind of a rotation pillar, which is something that he's very clearly desperate to do, right? Like you hear it from him. He's pretty candid about that desire to kind of earn his salary rather on the mound rather than by trying to rehab, by rehabbing to the best of his capabilities. That is going to be that would be really significant for the Red Sox to have that just reliable presence contributing.
I thought he played pretty cool too, because the difference between coming back after this next rehab outing and having 2 more rehab outings is pretty big as far as when he'll land, right? If he can get back after this one, it'll be this weekend at Fenway Park, Patriots Day weekend, which is always a party, against his former team, the Chicago White Sox. Or if he has to wait one more, it'll probably be Friday or Saturday in Cleveland against the Guardians, which maybe isn't quite the same adrenaline rush as making a return at Fenway on a holiday weekend.
Yeah, although, also maybe the weirdness of getting up at 11 a.m., having an 11 a.m. start as your first one back with a flyover could be a little bit strange. Right. Of course, his Red Sox debut, there was a decent chance that he was going to be the opening day starter for the Red Sox in 2024 and getting the flyover treatment with that one. So, but I think all things the Cleveland mound is a familiar one to him as well, right? Like he spent in the very difficult for him 2023 season, the one from which he's been trying to bounce back now for a while. He did spend part of that. I think he finished that season in Cleveland. So it's there would be a full circle element to that as well.
A quick flyover aside, it's always a strange flyover on Marathon, right? Because it's timed out with the runners, not the game. And right. I always remember, I think it was John Burkett on the mound in whatever year that would have been, 03.
This was 2003.
03, and someone hit a 3-run home run as the Jets were flying over. We were all looking up at the Jets. When we looked down, there's 3 guys circling the bases. Like, it was one of the more bizarre moments I've witnessed at Fenway Park.
I can tell you exactly. It was Chris Woodward, and when he was briefly a member of the Red Sox, I interviewed him about that, and he was so excited to talk about that because it was the greatest soundtrack in the history of baseball for a single home run, right? Like, as the ball is flying through the air, it is jets ripping through the sky and like breaking the sound. I'm not sure if they were breaking the sound barrier. I can't say specifically, but yes, it was an unforgettable soundtrack to a home run. Probably not so much for John Burkett, who was one of the like truly awesome people to be Absolutely. A member of the Red Sox in the early 2000s. But yeah, that was incredible. truly incredible.
And I think John Burkett and Chris Woodward are the only two guys who saw the bat hit the ball, because 37,000 people looked up at Jets and then looked down and the ball was up over the monster.
Yeah, well, they had the benefit of being able to see both ball and Jets traveling in roughly the same trajectory. Unfortunately for Burkett, very fortunately for Woodward. But yeah, he was when I asked him about it, he was pulling in Red Sox teammates at the time to be like, yeah, he knows this happens.
My other favorite Memorial Patriots Day story is when Carl Everett was here, and he was always a scratch. Once he was in the live, that was a last minute scratch. And I asked him one point, in the third person, he said, Carl Everett don't play morning games. So we'll all be there bright and early, 10 a.m. pregame on Monday. Make sure you wake up early and join us. But this was great conversation with Lucas, and it was a lot of fun. Good stuff, Alex.
Excellent. Look forward to all of the build up to Marathon Monday, but we've still got another show between now and then, so we'll look forward to that.
Yeah, little business to take care of this week. First, you got to finish up in Tampa. Then the White Sox come back, and of course, as only baseball can do, it'll be the third week of April, and you will be done with your season series against the Chicago White Sox. Not to see them again until the ALCS, and that is highly unlikely if you look at the latest odds. But there you have it. Anything else to add today, Alex? Are we done?
I think that'll do it, Tom.
Okay. That should be a new way to end this show. I'll just ask you if we're dismissed, and you can,
Yeah,
any homework,
it's the Major
any
League.
assignments?
Yeah, it's the Major League, like, Bob Uecker. So, anything to add to that? No.
Right. No, we're done. All right, we're done. For Alex Spear, I'm Tom Karen. We'll see you again next time. Thanks for joining us and checking out this edition of 310 to Left, presented by Ford.
And it's